Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. Yep, I think Cal's coming for Kentucky. I don't think there's any question. And the big question is, should Kentucky worry?
Revenge is a dish that is best served cold. It is very cold in space.
Yeah, I think this will be the story of the 2024-25 basketball season. It's going to be Kentucky versus Arkansas. Now, prior to that, as we go through the coming weeks and months, recruiting is going to be a big part of it. The transfer portal is going to be big. And Cal is going to try to do his normal thing, which is really load up with 5 stars. And he'll have some of the one-and-dones. I don't think he's going to go as heavy as he has in the past. I do think he's going to hit the transfer portal hard, which he has already done with this guy. And that's Kentucky's, I can't pronounce his first name, but it's Ivisic. And he's 7'2", and I've seen him play. Of course, you've seen him play. He will block your shot, and he's going to be a fine player over time, and I can totally understand why Cal wanted him. And he's going to try to get as many Kentucky players as he can, and definitely those recruits, because if you'll remember, Calipari had 6 recruits, and they were number 2 in the country. They had a bunch of 5-star. He's Mr. 5-star. Everybody knows that. He's the best basketball recruiter in college, probably in history. And he's going to certainly try to tap that well and try to get some of those guys that have already decommitted from Kentucky. I'm sure he feels like, hey, I recruited them. I brought them in, got them committed. I'm going to do the same thing here at Arkansas. Now, the revenge factor that John is probably feeling, I don't think it's as much towards the Kentucky fan base as it is Mitch Barnhart. As you know, things were not good between Calipari and Mitch. They were very negative.
Now you're gonna get it, Bobby.
And even the fan base had kind of turned their back on Calipari. Now, he wasn't fired, I know that, but he felt pushed out. And that's why he talked to Arkansas, because he didn't feel the love. And Calipari's sensitive to that. He knows when somebody doesn't want him, obviously, and he took it to heart. Now, one thing he will have going for him this year that he hasn't had in the last 4 or 5, because of the virus and all of that, everybody's had super seniors. They've had guys that stayed an extra year over the last several years, and that's really helped teams, where he was more of a one-and-done guy. So the one-and-dones became even less effective because you're having to play against guys that are 23, 24, 25 years old against a bunch of 18-year-olds there at Kentucky. And while they're tremendously talented, I'll take the 23-year-old that's a quality college player against an 18-year-old who is not really learned how to play basketball as a team player and hasn't learned how to play defense. And also an 18-year-old who's never been under the intense spotlight and pressure of an NCAA tournament. It will turn you upside down, and it did for several of the Kentucky players that had really played pretty well throughout the year and gotten better, but when the bright lights got on them, they just weren't used to it, and it takes a while to get accustomed to that. And when you take a team that's had players that have been in the NCAA tournament for 4 or 5 years, they're going to handle it a lot better. So that, I think he'll have a bit of an advantage there. Now, Kentucky and Arkansas are going to play. That's another reason why this is going to build and build and build. It's not like he went to UCLA or Washington or, one of these teams that are outside of the SEC. They're definitely going to face each other. We don't have the schedule in front of us yet. I don't know whether they're going to meet once or twice, but they're definitely going to meet, and that will be a huge game. If it's at Rupp Arena, oh, man, woo, you talking about loud. It will be something else. And Calipari's going to want to get that victory. He wants to prove Mitch Barnhart wrong. He wants to show, you know what, I still got it. And it'll probably be a fire burning in him to really show people that, hey, I'm back. I was never really gone, and Kentucky made a mistake pushing me out. Now, as far as Mark Pope at Kentucky, who's, I'm sure, a fine coach. He's at BYU. He's won about 2/3 of his games. He's never actually won an NCAA tournament game, but, I don't think he's a bad coach at all. And that whole hiring process, I'm really surprised it went as quickly as it did, since the top-tier guys pretty much said no. I thought he would have waited for Billy Donovan, or he would have at least approached Bruce Pearl. But Mitch had decided he wanted his guy, and he went after Mark Pope and paid him a lot of money. He's the number 6 paid coach in the country, which is, I don't get that. I think that was an overpayment, but that's what he wanted to do. Now, Kentucky's going to have plenty of money for transfer portal and recruiting and all that. They're never going to be bad. For all the fans out there, they're like, God, Kentucky's finally going to be bad. They will never be bad at basketball. Just go ahead and know that. A bad year for them, they're still good. Like winning 17, 18 games is a worst-case scenario for Kentucky. And believe me, when I tell you, they'll feel like they won 10 games. They care about their basketball. But I expect Mark Pope, he'll probably need a little bit of time. He's not going to be able to just fill the thing full with 5 stars. He's not that type of recruiter. There are very few that are. But I think he'll get a quality recruiting class, and I think he'll do well in the transfer portal and have a good quality team. And it's going to be a very different model from what Kentucky's used to over the last 15 years. It may take a couple of years to build up this team, 2-3 years, something like that. And by that point, I think he'll have a really good team that could do some real damage in the NCAA. I doubt he'll do it this year because he's not going to just be able to bring in what Calipari was able to do. But that doesn't mean he won't be building a quality program. And if you look at his roster, it's decimated at this point. Aaron Bradshaw and Avicevic have already left. One went to Ohio State, one went to Arkansas. Hart, Adu, and DJ Wagner are all in the transfer portal. Rob Dillingham, God, what a player he is. That guy can fill it up. Justin Edwards and Onyinso have declared for the draft. Trey Mitchell, Antonio Reeves, they're no longer eligible. Reeves is a heck of a player. Man, he's good. Now, Reed Shepherd has not decided yet, and he's awesome. That guy is a tremendous player. If they could somehow keep him an extra year, that would help Pope tremendously. But I think he's going to declare for the NBA because I think he's going to be a first-round pick. And Kentucky has lost 5 of their 6 players from their recruiting class that was number 2. And I'll show you here in a minute where they're ranked. It says here Pope has plenty of work to do when it comes – he's starting from scratch, honestly. Now, he did bring in a guy that was a BYU signee and had taken a 2-year mission, which a lot of the BYU guys do. So he's a 4-star, so they do have him coming. And that's Colin Chandler. And he's going to try to pull some guys from BYU. He's got a big, almost 7-footer that he could get from BYU in the transfer portal and several others. And they've got plenty of money to go into the portal. You know, they're going to get some big dogs. You just go ahead and know that. I mean, not only did they save $33 million they would have had to do in a buyout, but even at $5.5 million, which is a lot of money for Mark Pope, that's less. That's quite a bit less than they were paying Calipari. So that means as far as NIL money goes, they're going to have plenty of it. And understand the boosters up in Kentucky, they care deeply about basketball more than any other sport, and they're not going to want this guy to fail. I'll just go ahead and tell you, they will not allow that. So this is going to be a heck of a recruiting season for them and transfer portal. And Calipari is going to try to pull every single one of the players that he can that played at Kentucky or that had been committed to Kentucky. Because as far as he's concerned, those are his guys. So to me, the biggest story of SEC basketball in 2024 and 25 is obviously going to be what will John Calipari do in Arkansas, because they're super excited at Arkansas. They want to be a basketball school again like they were when they won a national title and they had a great coach. They feel like they're back. They feel like they're already back. And they weren't bad. When they had Musselman, he was fine before he left to USC. But they want to be big-time basketball again. And in Arkansas, there's money there. There's big money there. So they're going to be competing with the same firepower that Kentucky is. So I think it's going to be the story of the year. And look for Calipari to want some revenge, big time. And look for Kentucky to support Mark Pope to the nth degree. Because you know Mitch Barnhart does not want him to fail because it's going to make him look very foolish. And that would wind up being how a lot of people remember him. And he never wants it to be that way, I'm sure. So be looking for these 2 teams and these 2 coaches because it's going to be something else.
Prediction? Yes, prediction.
Pain.
And if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Let's continue to cover all these big college sports stories. And if you've not subscribed, just hit this little button right here. I would appreciate it. Costs you nothing, helps me out. And right over here is the most recent video. YouTube, thanks, you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.